Dr. Velshera had made her position abundantly clear: xenobiology field students did not, under any circumstances, interfere with natural predator-prey dynamics on observation missions. You watch. You record. You learn, the Velkari professor had stated during the pre-mission briefing, her bioluminescent patterns flashing with emphasis. These ecosystems have existed for millions of years. Your presence is already disruptive enough without actively tampering. Cadet Kenji Nakamura had nodded along with the other students, though his hand had drifted unconsciously to the survival knife strapped to his thigh, standard equipment for Deathworlders, even on safe observation missions. The gesture hadn't gone unnoticed. Mr. Nakamura, Velshera had added pointedly, this especially applies to you. I've read the incident reports from your homeworld training. Just because Earth's ecosystem tried to kill you daily does not mean you need to reciprocate that aggression everywhere you go. Now, 3 days into the Zarkos 4 field study, Kenji crouched behind a crystalline rock formation, his datapad dutifully recording the Skalrix pack's hunting patterns. The planet was classified as Class 3, minimal hazards, herbivorous megafauna, predictable weather. A paradise by Deathworld standards. Beside him, his lab partner Tyrese, a graceful Elori with moth-like wings, whispered through her translator. The Skalrix Alpha is positioning for an ambush. Fascinating. The gentle giants have no natural defenses against coordinated pack hunters. This will provide excellent data on. She stopped mid-sentence. The gentle giants, 6-legged herbivores the size of earth elephants, weren't alone. Nestled among them, barely visible in the tall crystalline grass, was something that made Kenji's threat assessment instinct scream. A juvenile. Maybe 3 months old. Separated from the herd by at least 50 meters. Tyrese, Kenji said quietly, do gentle giants practice protective herding behavior for their young? Of course. They're remarkably, her voice caught. Oh no. The calf is isolated. The Skalrix Alpha had noticed too. Its 6 eyes locked onto the vulnerable target, signaling its pack with a series of chittering calls. 8 predators began their approach, moving with the practiced efficiency of apex predators who'd never encountered resistance. We need to alert Dr. Velshera, Tyrese said, reaching for her communicator. Kenji was already moving. Nakamura, no. Observation protocol. But the Deathworlder was already sprinting across the crystalline meadow, his legs pumping with the explosive power granted by Earth's crushing 9.8 meters per square second gravity. On Zarkos IV's gentle 4.2 meters per square second, he moved like something from the Skalrix's worst evolutionary nightmares, a predator with no natural analog. The Alpha Skalrix saw him coming and made its fatal mistake. It assumed the small bipedal creature was prey. It lunged with claws extended, mandibles spread to inject paralyzing venom. Kenji dropped into a slide, his earth-trained reflexes operating in what seemed like slow motion on this light-gravity world. The Skalrix sailed overhead, its attack missing by centimeters. In one fluid motion, Kenji drew his survival knife and struck upward. The blade, designed to cut through Earth's toughest vegetation and animal hide, found the Skalrix's ventral nerve cluster with surgical precision. The creature's entire body went rigid as its primary neural pathway was severed. Not dead, but instantly paralyzed. The rest of the pack hesitated, their compound eyes struggling to process what they'd witnessed. In their evolutionary experience, prey didn't counterattack. Prey ran, or froze, or died. Kenji stood slowly, positioning himself between the juvenile gentle giant and the remaining predators. He didn't shout or wave his arms, Earth predators had taught him that showing fear was fatal. Instead, he simply stood there, knife in hand, meeting each Skalrix's gaze with the calm certainty of a species that had clawed its way to the top of a planet determined to kill it. One by one, the pack retreated. Behind him, the juvenile gentle giant made a soft, melodic sound, distress call, Kenji assumed. Within seconds, the adult herd thundered toward them, the ground shaking with their approach. They surrounded the calf, forming a protective circle, but notably, they didn't threaten Kenji. The largest bull, easily 10 tons of herbivorous muscle, lowered its massive head toward the human. For a terrifying moment, Kenji thought he'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then the bull gently pressed its forehead against Kenji's chest, a gesture the datapad would later identify as recognition of herd member. Mr. Nakamura. Dr. Velshera's voice crackled through his comm unit, sharp with anger. Report to base camp immediately. You have violated every protocol. The transmission cut off. When it resumed, her tone had shifted from anger to something closer to awe. Mr. Nakamura, is that a Scalrix Alpha? Did you sever its primary neural cord? Kenji looked down at the paralyzed predator. In the distance, he could see Tyrese frantically scanning the creature with medical equipment. It's still alive, Professor, he said carefully. Just immobilized. The neural damage should regenerate in 6 to 8 weeks according to the species database. I made sure not to cause permanent harm. The comm unit was silent for a long moment. Then, return to base camp. Bring the Scalrix. And Mr. Nakamura? Bring your field notes. All of them. 6 hours later, Kenji sat in the base camp's analysis lab while Dr. Velshera reviewed footage from his helmet cam. The professor's bioluminescent patterns flickered through colors Kenji had learned to recognize as deep contemplation. You assessed the Scalrix anatomy in real time, she said finally. Identified its neural structure. Calculated the precise strike angle to disable without killing. All while moving at combat speed in an unfamiliar gravity well. She looked up at him. How? Kenji shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. Earth has lots of predators, Professor. Sharks, bears, big cats, venomous insects, parasitic organisms. We learn their weak points or we don't survive. It's just pattern recognition. Just pattern recognition, Velshera repeated, her tone suggesting she found that explanation insufficient. She pulled up comparative data on her screen. In 40 years of field studies, we've lost 17 students to predator encounters. Not one of them was from a Class 7 or higher Deathworld. She met his eyes. Do you know why? Kenji thought about Earth's brutal evolutionary pressures. About humanity's ancestors who'd survived ice ages, megafauna, and microscopic killers. About the instinct to protect the vulnerable that had kept tribal groups alive when individual strength wasn't enough. Because we're not afraid of the predators, he said quietly. We're afraid of becoming prey. Velshera's patterns flashed in what Kenji had learned to recognize as approval. Your observation protocol violation will be noted in your record, Mr. Nakamura. Along with a commendation for demonstrating that Deathworlders bring unique value to xenobiological field work. She gestured to the still paralyzed Scalrix in the medical containment unit. You've provided us with unprecedented data on neural recovery in apex predators. And more importantly, you've proven that sometimes the best observers are those who understand they're part of the ecosystem, not separate from it. Tyrese entered the lab, her wings fluttering with excitement. The juveniles herd has remained near our camp perimeter all day. They're protecting us. The gentle giants think they think Kenji is one of them. Velshera's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a color Kenji hadn't seen before, something that looked almost like laughter. Of course they do. He defended their young against an apex predator. On Earth, what would you call someone who does that? Kenji smiled slightly. Family. The professor nodded. Revise your thesis proposal, Mr. Nakamura. I'm authorizing a long-term study on interspecies protective behavior. Observation mode, naturally. She paused at the door. Though I suspect, where Deathworlders are concerned, observation has a rather more active definition than our protocols account for. In the medical unit, the Scalrix Alpha's eyes tracked Kenji with what the sensors registered as something unprecedented in the species: wariness. Not fear of injury, they regenerated from most trauma. But fear of something more primal, the recognition that after millions of years as apex predators, they'd finally encountered something higher on the food chain. A small, fragile biped from a distant death world who'd casually removed a spine because it threatened something vulnerable. Kenji made a note in his field report: Scalrix pack behavior modified following encounter with Deathworld species. Pack now avoids areas with human presence. Hypothesis: predators with no natural enemies are unprepared for prey that fights back effectively. Then, because his Earth survival training insisted on thorough documentation, he added, secondary observation: Deathworld protective instincts may be transmissible across species boundaries. Further study required. Dr. Velshera would later cite that report in her landmark paper, Why Deathworlders Make Terrible Observers But Excellent Guardians. It would revolutionize xenobiological field protocols across the galaxy. But that night, as Kenji stood watch while the gentle giant's herd slept peacefully around the camp, he thought about what his grandmother had told him before he left Earth: we don't survive because we're strong. We survive because we refuse to let the monsters win. He looked at the knife in his hand, then at the sleeping juvenile he'd saved. Sometimes observation meant watching. And sometimes it meant making sure there was still something worth watching tomorrow. Kindly like and subscribe channel. Thank you.